So, what do you think is the most powerful force in world politics? Is it armies, economies? Nope, it's actually something invisible, something we almost never even talk about. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the dark matter of the international system. You've heard this story a million times, right? It's the one we're always told. The fate of the entire world hangs on the personal relationships between leaders. You know, a firm handshake, a quiet chat by the fireplace, that magical chemistry. That's what supposedly makes the world go round. But what if that's not the whole story? Not even close. What if by focusing on the personalities, we're missing the massive, invisible structure that's actually holding everything together? That's the real question we're digging into today. To even begin to see that hidden structure, we have to completely rethink the idea of trust. So let's start with a simple image, an iceberg. Okay, so the part we all see sticking out of the water, that personal chemistry between leaders, that's just the tip. But underneath, hidden from view, is this enormous foundation that provides all the real stability. And that, my friends, is what we're calling system trust. Let's break this down. First, you've got interpersonal trust. This is the stuff we deal with every single day. It's your faith in a friend, your belief that a colleague will get the job done. It's psychological. It's basically a personal bet that someone has your back, even when you can't be 100% sure. System trust, though, that operates on a totally different level. It's not about trusting a person. It's about trusting the system. It's that quiet background confidence that the sun's going to rise tomorrow, that your money will be worth something, that the basic rules of the game will still apply. It's this deep, unspoken assumption that the show will, in fact, go on. And that massive hidden part of the iceberg, that deep, stabilizing feeling, this is where our big idea comes into play. The best way to think about this powerful invisible force is as the dark matter of politics. Seriously, think about it. Just like dark matter in the universe, we can't see system trust directly. We can't point to it or measure it, but its gravitational pull is what shapes everything. It is the unstated, invisible force that holds the entire international system in orbit. So how does this political dark matter actually work? Well, even though we can't observe it, its influence is everywhere, shaping every single action. But here's the crucial part. Unlike the real thing in space, this isn't a law of physics. It's a social agreement. It only has power because all of us, collectively, act as if it's real. The moment we stop believing in it, poof, it's gone. Now, the fundamental building block of this dark matter is a kind of a strange idea called state personhood. It's this fiction we all agree to believe in, that these massive, complicated countries, like the United States or China, can act like individual people. We say things like France is angry or Germany made a promise. It's a total shorthand, but it's the shared story that allows the whole system to function. Okay, I know this might sound a bit abstract, so let's bring it right down to earth and see how it works in the real world. And honestly, there's no better example than the 1985 Geneva summit between Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev. It's a perfect case study for seeing both types of trust in action. So let's set the stage. The year is 1985. We are deep in the Cold War. Reagan and Gorbachev, leaders of the two rival superpowers, are about to meet for the very first time. I mean, the stakes could not have been higher. All right, so the story we usually get about this historic summit is all about personal chemistry. It's this fantastic tale of two very different men connecting on a human level, and in doing so, changing the course of history. And hey, Reagan himself talked about it exactly this way. He said he felt a personal chemistry with Gorbachev, something that was really close to a friendship. It's a really compelling human story. Gorbachev described it in even more dramatic terms. He said he felt a spark of electric mutual trust, like a physical jolt between them. So, okay, case closed, right? It was all about the personal connection. Well, maybe not. You see, the Geneva summit is kind of like that famous duck-rabbit optical illusion. For decades, we've all been staring at the rabbit, the story of interpersonal trust. But what happens if we force ourselves to shift our perspective? What if we try to see the duck? So let's do it. Let's look at the exact same event, but through this new lens, looking for the performance of system trust. Instead of two guys building a friendship, what if we see two actors on a global stage, performing their roles as state persons? When you look at it this way, everything changes. That famous private fireside chat, it was totally choreographed by advanced teams to project warmth and intimacy for the cameras. The final agreement? It was a ritualized ceremony with flags and pomp and circumstance. The entire summit was a public spectacle, designed not just for the two leaders, but to reassure the entire world. This wasn't just a conversation, it was a performance meant to reinforce the idea that these state persons could get along. So why does this distinction actually matter? Who cares if it was a friendship or a performance? Well, it matters a lot, because when these two types of trust break down, the consequences are wildly different. Losing one is bad. Losing the other is a catastrophe. Look at it this way. Losing interpersonal trust just leads to, well, distrust. You stop trusting a specific leader or a specific country. But when you lose system trust, when that dark matter starts to disappear, what you get is existential anxiety. It's that terrifying feeling that the very ground is shifting beneath your feet, that the entire world order is falling apart. It's like a bank run on reality itself. Our basic sense of stability, our belief that the world is more or less predictable, just evaporates. And when people feel that kind of deep, gut-wrenching anxiety, they become incredibly vulnerable to a politics of fear. They might even trade their freedom for anyone who promises to make the world feel stable again. And that really brings us to the whole point of this. This isn't just some abstract theory. It's a completely new way of seeing the world. Once you understand this concept of system trust, this dark matter, you get a powerful new tool, a new lens. You can look at any diplomatic meeting, any international crisis, and ask a totally different and much deeper set of questions about what is really going on. So the next time you see world leaders shaking hands on a stage, ask yourself this: are you actually watching a relationship being built, or are you watching a reality being performed for all of us? The answer might just change how you see everything.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your stack of reading material, the articles, the notes, all that research, and turn it into something, well, fascinating and hopefully actionable.
And today we are really peering into the shadows of world politics. We're tackling some big concepts, things like state personhood, and most importantly, something the authors are calling international system trust.
Right, and the hook for this whole deep dive, it really starts with a trend you see everywhere now. I mean, just think about recent American presidents, from Trump to Biden.
Absolutely.
They have all heavily stressed the importance of personal ties, of that, that interpersonal trust you get from face-to-face summits.
It's always about the handshake, the rapport in the room. I mean, Trump famously used that love affair language when talking about Kim Jong-un.
He did.
And then Biden, setting aside all the drama, he comes in and says all politics is personal, that personal relationships are, quote, the only vehicle by which you build trust.
Exactly. And while that focus on leader-to-leader chemistry is, well, it's obviously important, our sources today suggest it's only the tip of the iceberg.
A tiny tip.
The material you sent over proposes that this entire interaction, it relies on a much larger, almost unseen force, this international system trust.
Yeah, and the authors have this great analogy. They call it the dark matter of world politics.
The dark matter.
It's that invisible gravitational force. You can't see it in the headlines, but it's what's fundamentally holding the whole political galaxy together. You take that away and everything it flies apart.
So our mission today is to really conceptualize this dark matter, to analyze its central unit, this really interesting idea of the state person, and then use a classic example.
The 1985 Geneva Summit.
The 1985 Geneva Summit. Reagan and Gorbachev. We're going to use that to see how these two kinds of trust, the personal and the systemic, really interact.
And how they depend on each other. It's sort of a mission to understand the preconditions of diplomacy itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. So we have interpersonal trust, the thing we all see, and system trust, this dark matter. What is the foundational difference between them?
Well, it really comes down to scale and direction. Let's start with the one we know, interpersonal trust, or, IT.
Okay.
As we said, it's that positive expectation you have about what someone else is going to do, even when you're not sure. It's micro level, it's psychological, it's about two people.
And the field of international relations, IR, they usually see this kind of trust as happening in a really tough environment. This idea of realist anarchy.
That's the crucial context. Yeah. The idea is there's no world government. States are just looking out for themselves and everyone's on their own.
Self-help.
Right. And because of that assumption, IR scholarship usually treats forging those personal bonds, that interpersonal trust, as this really scarce, fragile thing, almost a heroic accomplishment. It's the exception, not the rule.
And it works horizontally, leader to leader. It's about reducing the risk in that one interaction.
Precisely. Now, compare that to system trust, the dark matter.
Right.
System trust is defined as confidence in the continuity of the whole shared socio-political order itself. It isn't psychological, it's a sociological phenomenon. And here's the key. In a stable system, it's generally plentiful. It's durable.
So it's not about trusting a specific person or even one state. It's about trusting the rules of the game, the entire structure.
Exactly. And its mechanism is vertical. It runs between the members of the system, the states, the public, and the system itself as an idea, an abstraction.
Okay.
And the really crucial insight here is that the very idea that two leaders can meet in anarchy to build trust, while it relies on a deeply held background assumption, they have to have a pre-existing trust in anarchy itself.
Wow, that's a fascinating way to put it. Trust in anarchy. So they have to trust that the whole system of states, diplomatic conventions, all of that, that it's going to hold together long enough for their personal handshake to even matter.
If that system trust isn't there, the personal chemistry between Reagan and Gorbachev is just a nice chat. It has no political weight. It's like a shared fiction that everyone just agrees to believe in.
It is. And what's fascinating here is the authors connect this to how we trust money. You know, we trust that a piece of paper currency has value, and that collective trust in the unit anchors the entire financial system.
So in world politics, the currency unit, that's the state person.
That's the state person.
Okay, that brings us right to part 2. If system trust is the dark matter, then the state person is the sun it all revolves around. And that feels like a huge conceptual leap from structures to people.
It's a massive leap, but it's one we make, like every single day without even noticing. State personhood is this assumption that states are two things at once. They're structures of political authority, and they're actors or persons. And these persons can take intentional action. They can have human-like feelings. You know, a state can feel offended, hold a grudge, feel fear, and they can have relationships, friendship, enmity. So wait, when we say Russia invaded Ukraine, we're basically slapping human agency onto this incredibly complex web of bureaucracy and people and history. Isn't that, I don't know, a bit of a dangerous shortcut?
It's absolutely a shortcut, but the sources argue it's a necessary one. They call it a feat of imagination, a phenomenological transformation that happens automatically for leaders, for diplomats, for you and me.
It simplifies the chaos.
It simplifies unimaginable complexity into a language we all get. The interpersonal vernacular.
So when we hear Germany is worried about inflation, we instantly understand the situation. We don't need a report on the anxieties of 83 million individuals.
Precisely. And that act of simplifying, that backgrounded feeling of knowing that the state is a person in a stable system, that's what creates something called individual ontological security.
Ontological security. Okay, that's a term we need to sit with for a second.
It's so fundamental. It's the basic confidence that your world is going to endure, that the political reality you live in is understandable, and that your own identity within it is reliable.
And when the state person acts predictably, our own sense of security gets a boost.
It gets reinforced. And that security is so important because, remember, system trust is the dark matter holding it all together. It's unobservable, but invisibly conditioning patterns of action.
So if you take away that system trust, it's not just that leaders can't get along.
No, you lose the essential energy that keeps the whole system going. And that leads to this critical distinction. The opposite of interpersonal trust is just mistrust. You can fix that.
Right. A friction.
But what's the opposite of system trust?
It has to be something much deeper, much more primal.
It is. It's existential anxiety or dread. It's that gut punch feeling when you realize the system you rely on, the world order, is just a fragile social construct that could completely fall apart.
It's the feeling of the ground shifting under your feet.
That's it, exactly. And thinking this way, it also helps solve a really old academic puzzle in IR. The aggregation problem.
The aggregation problem, that's about the difficulty of scaling up, right?
Yeah.
How do you get from one person's trust to state trust?
Yeah, how do the feelings of 300 million people magically combine into a coherent foreign policy? It's a puzzle.
And the answer here is they don't just add up.
They don't. System trust isn't the sum of everyone's feelings. It's a relationship between the whole and its parts. The best way to get this is the classic Keynesian example of a bank run.
Okay, let's walk through the bank run analogy.
So, a bank can be totally solvent. Mathematically, it has the money. But if the confidence in the institution itself evaporates, if people just stop trusting the system, it collapses instantly.
The cause is a collective withdrawal of system trust. It doesn't even matter if every single person lost faith at the exact same moment.
Right. And that tells us that system trust, while it's durable, it needs constant, visible maintenance. It depends on competent public performances by the people in charge, the leaders, the diplomats, to reinforce that shared confidence.
And that competent performance is the stage. It's what allows the personal trust to actually mean something.
It's the stage, the script, and the lighting all in one.
That is the perfect segue, because here's where it gets really interesting. Let's take this lens and apply it to that iconic example of personal diplomacy. The 1985 Geneva Summit, Reagan and Gorbachev.
Yeah, this is the classic case. It's always held up as the moment where two men, face to face, pulled the world back from the brink of nuclear war through a personal bond.
That's the traditional story. Scholars like Wheeler, they focused almost entirely on that personal narrative. The idea that face-to-face contact created reassurance, rapport, social bonding.
And you hear all the compelling quotes, the leaders talking about the spark of electric mutual trust, the personal chemistry that led to a kind of friendship. The story is that human connection beat ideology.
It's a great story. But the system trust perspective, from scholars like Mitzen and Koo, it argues that all those positive effects depended heavily on something else.
On the ongoing reproduction of the state person through carefully staged performances.
Okay, let's break down those performances. The most famous one, the boathouse meeting. This is always sold as the intimate, spontaneous chat where the real bonding happened.
Right. And this is where the analysis is so sharp. Because yes, the content of their chat about their wives, their families, it created these very human moments. But the institutional structure was the precondition for all of it.
It wasn't spontaneous at all.
Not at all. The whole scene, the little cabin, the walk, even having a fire roaring in the fireplace, it was all meticulously planned by the advance teams. It was straight out of the diplomatic playbook.
A planned moment of spontaneity. The system built the stage so the personal trust could have its moment. It wasn't just a chat. It was a symbolic act.
Exactly. And the performance didn't stop there. Gorbachev, who was less media savvy at the time, apparently learned cues from Reagan on how to sit, how to seem relaxed for the photo ops.
So the final iconic image, it wasn't just symbolizing warmth between two guys.
No, it symbolized rapport between the states, between the American state person and the Soviet state person.
And then there's the second performance, the joint communique.
Yeah, the personal trust might have sped up the timing or sweetened the tone, but the document itself was a formal diplomatic commitment. It was an institutional buffer.
That's where they agreed that a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought.
Right. And that wasn't scribbled on a napkin in the boathouse. It was a formal text that anchored their personal breakthrough in the language of the state.
And the signing of it was pure political theater, pure system performance.
Totally. A ritualized event. The foreign ministers signed it. There's a choreographed ceremony. The American and Soviet flags are right there. Why have flags? Because the trust has to belong to the nation state, not just the two guys who are about to leave office.
It signals institutional buy-in. And finally, the public response. This is where you see that vertical system trust really being renewed.
The whole summit was, by its very nature, public. Every performance, like Reagan shaking Foreign Minister Shevardnadz's hand, was designed to create a feeling about U.S.-Soviet relations for the whole world.
And there's actual data for this, right?
There is. The most compelling evidence is in the polling data. You can see a visible, measurable drop in American public anxiety about nuclear war as these summits went on.
So the successful reproduction of system trust, that shared feeling that the two state persons were stable and talking to each other, it directly lowered public dread.
Absolutely. Without that public institutional performance, the personal chemistry is just a fleeting moment. The agreement would have been only as stable as their friendship. The system trust is what made it last.
That distinction feels incredibly relevant today. What does this deep dive really mean for diplomacy now, in an era that's so defined by populist, often very personalistic leaders?
Well, I think it's a huge warning sign. When system trust is low and we're seeing public trust in institutions, in government, in media just plummeting across the West, the whole system becomes unstable.
And populist leaders often rise by attacking those very institutions.
They do. They position themselves as the outsider who can fix things through sheer force of will, through personal charm, not through the slow, boring work of bureaucracy.
Right. But if your agreements are based only on that personal charm, they're not built to last. They're not institutionalized. That's the danger of mere trust.
And the outcome becomes transient. It relies on one person's presence. The source material has this beautiful line: the king has only one outward-facing body. Once that person is gone, the whole structure can just vanish.
Personal rule is destabilizing because if a major peace deal depends only on whether leader A gets along with leader B, it's gone the second one of them loses an election. The system never got a chance to absorb it.
This raises an important question. When you see modern leaders who deliberately bypass their own institutions, the State Department, Congress, whatever, and they stress only the personal bond, are they actively undermining the very dark matter that makes any success they have lasting?
It seems like they are. They're trading long-term stability for what looks like short-term effectiveness.
The charismatic leader who gets a personal win risks degrading the very architecture that could have made that win permanent. You're elevating the story, the tip of the iceberg, at the expense of the huge stabilizing structure underneath.
It's a real paradox, isn't it? We celebrate these heroic interpersonal success stories, but doing that obscures the importance of the boring institutional state person that actually gives the success its meaning and its durability.
We love the handshake. We forget about the treaty office that drafted the text, the advanced teams that set up the room, all of it. And, IR scholars themselves might be part of the problem by always assuming this realist anarchy and framing personal trust as the only heroic way out. They risk validating the personalistic leader.
They subtly encourage a focus on personality over policy and institutions.
They do.
That's a really powerful insight. And it leads us to our final provocative thought for you to take away. The source material suggests that when our political conversations ignore the stable institutions that maintain system trust, we're basically inviting all sorts of old anxieties to come back. So if that system trust finally breaks down, if we all stop believing in the state person as a real thing, what societal anxieties, what existential dread that the state system has been holding at bay for centuries might suddenly come flooding back into our lives?
We might just find ourselves in the middle of a political bank run, scrambling to withdraw a confidence that's already gone and realizing just how exposed we are to the naked fragility of the world order.
Something profound to consider the next time a politician promises world peace based on personal chemistry alone. Thank you for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.